Welcome back to the latest episode of the Key and Mang audio experience. I'm your host, Mang, as always, my fellow co-host, Key. Key, what's goody?
What's up? How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Lovely. I'm so lovely.
Love that. Love that. Love that. Especially we in February now. Year is flying by. I feel like January flew by really quick, and now February is here, and it's the shortest month of the year. And pretty soon we're already going to be through a quarter of the year already, which is crazy to think about.
It's insane. Usually January feels so long, but it didn't.
Hey, this one, I feel like this one did though.
Huh?
I feel like this January was long.
Oh, I didn't even, honestly, I didn't even notice it for the first time. I don't know why, but
It'd be like that. And I think also like for like people in like college right now, it's the start of a new semester in January, and you're like getting back into your routine of like some people are like I know my brother, he's a senior in college right now, so he's like this is the last semester, and so it's like kind of racing to the finish line. But I bring him up because I know being in college, you have a lot of structure, you have a lot of routine. Your classes are spread out through 3 classes, 4 classes throughout 1 to 2 hours of the day. So then you have the rest, you have a lot more time to just chill, eat, party, do what you want to do, and not feel like you're struggling and drowning. I know that's how it was for me when I was in college. You got, practice, and then whenever games are, you got your workout routine. It's all kind of laid out for you, and you fit your classes around the schedule, but you still have a lot of time to do whatever it is you need to do. Um, so I think, that you think about the transition from outside of college, from once you graduate college or once you stop school and going into transitioning to a career or a field, and you're like, well, where did the time go? Where did the structure go? I know for me it was tough. It was a tough transition to go from I got all this time to play basketball whenever I want, to eat whenever I want, to work out whenever I want, to now I got a 8 to 4 job, 8 to 4:30 job. You get tired from going to work, so then you don't go work out after. You don't really, you just go eat and then just go get ready for the next day. The things that you enjoy suddenly go down the waistline. You start to not do as much anymore, and life isn't as fun as it was in college anymore because you lack the time. So I just want y'all listening to think about what life was like for you guys after college, and how was that transition from having things structured and scheduled to now having to make your own plan and own schedule. And Key, I'd love to hear about your transition in college, like how that transition was for you in college, and when you got into or after PT school and getting into the working field.
um, college was college was really easy. I thrive in structure, so it was great having like your classes scheduled, um, having practices scheduled, meals scheduled, all that stuff was scheduled. So it wasn't like I had to think much about what I need to do. I mean, I think that made it easy. And then when I stopped playing basketball, I still pretty much was on a schedule with work and doing different things around campus. So it was pretty much like my life was on autopilot, and I was still able to have a lot of fun. So I felt very productive in all aspects. And it was everything that I was interested in at the time. And then going to PT school, you have structure as well. And I think during PT school, it was hard to get consistent with exercise specifically, despite having the structure of classes and things to do every day, just because you don't really have anybody telling you exactly what to do in terms of your physical activity. In college, if you play a sport, you're pretty much told what to do. Like you're told when to lift, you're told when to practice, when to eat, all that stuff. Like everything is pretty much set out for you, so you don't have to think about it. But then when you go to grad school and you're just a student, you kind of have to figure out how to navigate your studies and your personal life with your exercise. And that's where I fell off. So I ended up not working out for a really long time, putting a lot of weight. And in PT school, that's when I had to basically get back into a routine. And the way I did that was trying to use some of the things that I was learning in PT school in my exercise routine and really changing my mindset from having to do types of workouts that I hate because I hated running, but I had to I had to run in school, you know. I had to run. There were certain requirements that were called of us. So um me not having to do that willingly, I just wasn't going to do it. So I had to find what type of workouts I liked. So I got into jumping rope and lifting weights. And that looked a lot different than what it looked like in college. And that took a long time to kind of wrap my head around. Like, just because you're not doing what you're doing last year doesn't mean it's not effective, or doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. So that was the biggest transition for me. And then transitioning from PT school to work, that was a whole different shift because now I feel like it takes more energy to work a 9 to 5 at first, especially as a new grad. And you feel so tired coming home, like you feel mentally fatigued. You don't want to actually exercise. And then you kind of work split shifts, like you have an early day and a late day. And on your late day, you just want to sleep in. But then by the time you get off of work and you got to go back to work the next morning, it's like hard to get into a routine. So it took me a while to get used to my schedule. I would say like within the last year, I'm finally like accustomed to my schedule and I can get into a consistent exercise routine. But I feel like that was like starting over all over again.
Yeah, I feel you.
Oh,
I feel you. I feel you on that. It's tough because I think especially as a you go from the structure of having your classes laid out for you, having um having everything kind of planned out, and then all of a sudden it's like you taking responsibility for your own life, and from kindergarten to whenever you're done with school, you haven't had to you've had structure of like school starts this time, it ends at this time. You got homework you got to finish up, you got projects you got to do, but it's all kind of been laid out for you. And all of a sudden now it's like now you're traveling for work meetings, or now you got to go, meet this deadline for this project. But it's just you and your team, or just you by yourself trying to figure it out. And all of a sudden that structure is gone, that reliability of knowing, all right, from this time to this time, I got to do this. It's gone. Now I got to be readjusted. And I know for me, I didn't really mention PT school too much, but for me, what really helped me was I was struggling a lot early with PT school because the pressure of like trying to make sure you maintain grades. I was scared of academic probation. I did not want to be on academic probation. I didn't want to be dismissed from the program just because I felt like I put a lot of extra pressure on myself being one of the minorities in the cohort and just in the field in general. Like I don't want people to be like, nah, my black people can't be physical therapists. They can't handle the course, so they can't do this and that. So there was a lot of pressure in that. So trying to figure out what routine worked for me school wise, but then I think I got lucky with my roommates because they were all active individuals, hit time for the gym, finding ways to balance the school and life, and watching them and them forcing me to go lift with them and go train with them helped me find an escape away from school and allowed me to lock in even better into school because it wasn't just all school all the time. Like I was using I had an outlet to be able to then retain what I was learning in class to then go try out some stuff in the weight room or, outside of school. And that kind of what helped me. And I think just finding people who are working towards the same thing and we all had the same end goal and just trying to make sure we all get to that point was helpful for me. And I think just like now when you talk about the finding the routine, getting out of school, it was tough because now you go from 8 hours of straight just like patient work. And PT is cool. Like I don't want to make it sound like it's not cool, but essentially when you think about it, it's you're spending a lot of time with somebody who's in a bad place initially, and you're having to take all that in and suddenly and figure out how do you help them get one to their goal? How do you change their outlook on where they're at in life? They're in a very down state right now, and how do you build a plan to turn it around and get them to where they're going, and that'll in turn change their outlook on how they're looking at things in their body and what they're capable of. And to take all that negative energy, and it's a lot. It's draining. And so I think that plays into part of why it's hard then to be able to go afterwards and go work out and go take care of yourself because you've been taking in a lot of negative down. I don't want to say complaining, but that's like kind of what it is at the time. And you're just trying to figure out how do you stay afloat. So I think for me, it's like learning how to leave work at work and not bring it home with you. Finding ways to take breaks. We've talked about like stepping away to go get water at the water fountain to think about lists, a couple of things you're grateful for. Just a couple of things to get you going to allow you to reset for each person that you're about to see. And I think realizing that you don't need to lift as frequently as you were lifting in college to maintain the gains that you've made. Like strength gains can stay for plus or minus a month, 25 days, plus or minus 5 days, if you're consistent with it and hitting it at a high enough intensity. Cardio, a little less, I want to say it's like 3 weeks or something like that, or maybe it's a little longer. But you have as long as you maintain it at a high enough intensity, you don't need to be going 5 days a week, 6 days a week to the gym. Now, if you're like sprinting and power movements, you got to do that more frequently. But if you can fit it in, if you can get in 3, 4 good days, then you're straight. Like you don't have to do it as more often as 6, 7 days like you was doing in college. And like you said, you can pick the things that you enjoy to do. So if you hate back squatting, you do not have to back squat. You can pick a different variation. If you don't like burpees, you don't have to burpee. Like you can do other things. So I think this is now a time for you to realize, all right, what do I like? I know I have to work out. I know I have to take care of myself, but what do I enjoy doing? What's going to help me stay accountable to myself? What's going to help me? How do I stay, like if it's a sport, how do I stay involved in the sport? And all your exercises are going to be geared towards helping you do what you have to do in said sport, whether it's frisbee, whether it's golf, whether it's tennis, court sport, basketball, football, whatever. So I think that when you shift it like that, it's like, all right, I'm doing all this to maintain so I can continue to play the sport that I love. I need this sport. Well, you don't need it, but I need it as part of my routine to help me like live as a person and thrive as a person and be who I really am. So I think when you look at it like that, and when you think about this long-term benefits of like improved sleep, improve brain function, improve metabolic the systems. Like when you think about it like that, it makes a lot of sense just to make yourself a little more efficient and do the things that you enjoy and you can see yourself doing, and it's not a hassle. Unless you're like me and force yourself to sit on a bike and do cardio for 30 minutes, but you know it's for overall long-term health. So that's that's my pitch on how to like create structure and get some of your life back to doing the things that you enjoy, even though you don't have the same structure and schedule that you used to have in school.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. Also something that I think former athletes don't realize is there's certain qualities that you could take advantage of. I think former athletes are very competitive and they want to see improvement in specific areas. And I think when you get out of school or when you're done playing, you are really good at certain physical attributes, but there may be things that are missing in your routine or like weaknesses that you have, that if you can kind of formulate a routine regarding, I mean, around what your weaknesses are, you can kind of use that competitive edge you have in order to see improvement. So, for example, if you were really good or really like strong on on your team lifts, but you had an area where you weren't necessarily performing as well, you can like just structure your workouts around improving that, and the athlete in you is going to want to improve upon that. So I think that's something that you can take advantage of, and I think that's something that gives people who were former athletes an edge over people who weren't former athletes that we don't necessarily realize. And then also finding different ways to hold yourself accountable because if you think about why you did what you did in college, it's not necessarily because you wanted to. Like, yes, we all want to play a college sport, right? But a lot of the stuff that comes with it, we don't want to do. You only did it because you were held accountable and you were forced to do it. So if you can find that same form of accountability in your new life, essentially, then you'll be able to get back into a routine. So your form of accountability could be workout partners, it could be hiring a trainer. It's similar to having a coach. You have to show up, you have to perform. Um, and then also even like joining specific classes that are more on like the athletic side of things, like a F45 or a CrossFit, something that you have to show up to at a specific time and date. And it forces you to, one, show up. It gives you things that you can improve upon and help you perform. And it keeps you feeling like an athlete as opposed to somebody who just goes on walks and stuff like that. I feel like if you have been a college athlete, there's specific workouts that you gravitate towards and brings you back to like the old days. So those would be the two things that I would add.
I would also say on top of that, if you want something, even just something simple, simple as writing down, I'm going to hit this workout today in your notebook, in your whiteboard, just some on your phone notes app. I'm going to work out today. If you can get as specific as you want, I'm going to hit cardio day today on the elliptical. Not on the elliptical. I ain't going on the elliptical. On the on the bike, whether it's intervals, whether it's long distance, because it's going to help me be able to play better on the basketball court. I'll use myself as an example. So I've been playing basketball consistently, and I feel like I'm straight, like I'm solid still. But it's always my cardio is what's lacking. And I gotten to a point where like I don't go for loose balls I normally would get. I don't jump. I'm not as active as the game starts to go on. And I know I've trained, but I just don't do cardio. And it's pissed me. It pissed me off to a point where I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna sit on this bike, and it sucks. 30 minutes. I got an average wattage of 97. But in my head, I was like, I just sat on the bike for 30 minutes. I maintained in a heart rate zone that I was looking to maintain at. That's all that matters. People can laugh. I don't do cardio. I hate cardio. People can laugh. I don't give a fuck. But 97 watts on average for 30 minutes. And then I just did it again a couple of days ago. Went up to 123 on average. So it's a 30-watt increase, but it's what I'm using to track. All right, it's like what you talking about. It's a competitor in you. I gotta beat what I did last time. The same 30 minutes, putting a little more power into the pedals and able to not as bad when you have something to like plug into and like you know what your baseline was. And I know it's probably crazy, but playing again a couple of days on Thursday, I felt a lot better, more locked in than the times before. And it's only been twice that I've done it. So now I'm like, all right, trying to see the translation of what the work you've been doing and it directly affects the output of what you're trying to achieve. So I think there's little things like that. Write down what you want to get done, use your beginning marks as your baselines and try to beat it week by week, month by month, and over time if you want to compete with yourself because you're your biggest competitor at the end of the day. Like the only one going to get in your way is probably you. Like no one else is going to get in your way. So I think if you can get over that mental hurdle, I think you set yourself up for long-term success in a good way.
Yeah, and then last thing that I would add is just you said writing down that you're going to get the workout in, but also writing down like how you're noticing you being on this routine is impacting you in other areas. Like for you, the cardio, you're reaping the benefits on the court, but for some people, working out it really just sets the tone for their day. So if you can kind of reflect upon each day and say like, hey, I worked out today before work and it made a difference in like how I was able to get through the day versus hey, I didn't work out before work and it really made my day suck. Like it was hard for me to get through the day. I was more fatigued. Seeing those things and seeing how it impacts you will make you want to do it, even though you don't feel like doing it.
Yep.
So for me, I went to the gym 5 days this week and I probably can say I only wanted to be there 2 times. But I've been doing it so much that I know that if I don't do it, I'll feel worse than if I didn't just like I didn't even go. So that's something that I've been doing, just trying to find patterns between like, hey, if I do this, what is the effect? If I don't do it, what is the effect? And then that kind of helps you kind of rationalize why you should do it anyways.
Hmm.
So those would be my well our big tips if you're somebody who was a former athlete or if you were just somebody who worked out in the past and for some reason you fell off, definitely go through those steps and try to get yourself back into a routine.
I
With
like it.
that being said, we'll catch you guys on the next episode. Peace.
Later.